or the city of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's Friday, and here we go.
Already it's starting out. First thing is first.
First thing is first.
Okay?
Yes.
4.5% of the voters turned out yesterday.
That's about 3.5 more than I thought.
I'm going to tell you right now, that's 2,217 voters. Okay? And when you consider the fact that it costs about $60,000 to run an election, that boils out to be what, $30 a vote?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that, it is unfortunate, but, you check my voting record. I don't think I've ever missed a final election, but I don't vote in a lot of primaries anyway. But this primary, virtually everyone, it was uncontested. It wasn't an election, it's a coronation.
Right.
And shame on the voters in those districts. Somebody should have run for something, just to provide some, a little bit of accountability. They actually might have to spend all that money they make at their fundraisers if they had an opponent, or a little bit of it anyway. They might have to buy a few chow mein sandwiches. So, but I mean, look, I'm not blaming the vote. We always complain about low turnout, but this was absurd. Our entire state delegation's running unopposed. So,
yep.
Why bother? It's you're gonna go there, put an X. All they have to do is show up and put an X, and they're elected. Like you said, it's not an election; it's a coronation.
And the problem has been this: because of the low voter turnout, incumbents basically had the election, even if they were contested. And I looked at some of the races across the state that were contested, and you know what? The incumbent got most of the votes.
Yeah.
And which is kind of normal because, I don't know if the voter is just stupid or if they're just lazy.
Yeah.
Or they're just so apathetic they don't care. So
yeah. Well, a lot of people don't want to. A lot of people, if there's, it's a low turnout because most of the offices are uncontested. A lot of people don't want to cross over. I have voted in. I don't vote a lot in primaries, but if there's a primary that I'm really, that I think is really a race that should get attention, I have actually voted on Republican and Democrat during primaries, and then went back to independent, or whatever they call it now, the unenrolled, or whatever euphemistic title they want to give it. But the fact is, primary elections, for the most part, as you said, are an exercise in futility.
Yeah.
Very difficult to get rid of an incumbent within his own party.
Right. Well, one of the things that was reported on Wednesday and Thursday morning was the fact that the Fall River schools started a year out on a high note. Yeah, high fives. Yeah. Here was the problem with that. And, here I go. I'm going to go poo-poo on everyone's parade. This was a great event to stop absenteeism and to tell the kids we're behind you, except for one thing, school committee, except for one thing, Mr. Mayor, except for one thing, Mr. School Superintendent. There's a thing called the Student Privacy Act. It is a federal law. Massachusetts also has it. Now, this may be a great idea, but before any child in the Fall River public school system, or in any school system, can be photographed, like the front page of the Herald News, otherwise known as Pravda, they must have a release allowing it. Those releases are sent home on the first day of school. I know I've had several children in the Fall River school system, and I always got those releases at the end of the first day of school. So unless the school department and the city sent notices out to all the parents prior to this event, they violated the law. Also, they failed to take into consideration children with autism, behavioral issues, and failed to create a method for them to avoid this gauntlet of political whores. I call them like I see them. You have Pamela Liberté LeBeau. Thankfully, she didn't take pictures with any children, sans her own. And Ed Kostar did not get seen in photographs with any of the children. Well, Ed did get to see with his granddaughter, but that's okay. That's legal. But they produced an absolute violation of the law. Because guess what? The law doesn't apply to them.
That's correct.
Because they are the monarchy.
That's
okay?
correct.
They are
Aristocracy.
the duchesses and dukes of Bull. Okay? And that's what's happening here. So, of course, people being who they are, who know the law, decided to send complaints to the mayor. Which, by the way, in case anyone's tried to send email to the mayor this week, it all comes back as bounced. The servers at City Hall are no longer accepting emails at mayor@fallriverma.org. They all get bounced. Not like he ever got them anyhow, because I know that his royal, monarchy over there is intercepting everything, and the Count of Bourgeoisie, Faust Fiore, came up and probably scoffed up the email. But those complaints were also sent on, and I know because I actually sent one myself, to the U.S. Department of Education, Civil Rights Division, the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and guess what? They're going to have to answer to other charges now. Do the job right, nobody complains. Do the job wrong, and we are watching.
Well, unfortunately, you know as well as I do, CJ, that the city of Fall River feels that, its government and all its agents, contrary to the fact that the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts says very clearly, in one of our favorite parts, that they are at all times answerable to the people. But they feel that, they're above the law. The taxpayer and the citizen has to abide by the law. But there are a flexible set of laws for them. The ones they like, they'll abide by. The ones they dislike, they ignore. And it's not our opinion, it's fact. And the reality is that I still have the article from a Boston judge that basically said, I'm sick and tired of seeing Fall River in my court for ignoring the law. And it's gone on, and it keeps going on. And I know a lot of people get upset with these complaints, but kudos, because you got to hold their feet to the fire. The fact is that this state, this entire country has fallen apart because the lack of, and I like to say the proletariat rather than the bourgeoisie. The proletariat will not, don't exercise their right to control government. We continue to tell people that you have to vote people out that are not listening to you. They are your representatives. They are your agents. And unless we hold their feet to the fire, this is what we get. We get pharmaceutical companies that are raping and pillaging and killing people. We get, senators and congressmen and state reps who totally ignore the fact that they're, the legislation they pass affect people. And it begins at the grassroots. At the grassroots is holding our city officials to the letter of the law. We're held to the letter of the law. They're not. They can just unilaterally, they think they can unilaterally just ignore anything they want and do anything they want. And again, the situation in the school department shows, the hell with it. There's a law. Well, we don't care. This is Fall River.
Well, Chip, I have an emergency announcement coming in.
Uh-oh.
There it is.
There you go. That's very good.
I'm telling you.
So true.
Yep, the emergency announcements are coming in right and left. But you saw every elected official making sure they were seen, shaking hands, giving high fives.
It's a photo op.
Yep. And you know who did this? It was Will Flanagan. He did this during the recall. He was seen with every kid in the city. Yeah. But
Will would be at the opening of an envelope.
This is true.
As long as he could get his picture in the paper.
Hey, another surprise. Yeah. The Labor Board finds the city probably guilty.
Well, yeah. What a surprise.
What a surprise.
What a surprise. Yep. This is my wheelhouse, and you know it. And on one of our shows, I read the 4 elements that constitute an impasse, and the city did not meet any one of those 4 elements. And what a surprise. We made that bold prediction a long time ago that they would lose this. And even though they sent Kathy Pinocchio, my nose is in California because I lie so much, Viveris, up to Boston to say, throw this case out, throw this case out. Yeah, of course, the labor board looks at it like, you know, what are you, crazy? This is actually a case. There are two sides to this litigation. You think you could come up here and demand that we throw it out? Why? Because you want us to? It's kind of like the City Council Real Estate Committee, which we'll get into later. You know, they kind of like do whatever they want. For one person, the rule is one. They have one rule, and for the next person who fits, there's another rule. So guess what? They lost. And they're paying people. They're going to pay that law firm that they already owe $300,000 to more money to go before the Labor Relations Commission and plead this case in its final phase. And they will lose again. And we'll probably get whacked for over $500,000 in legal fees. Thank you very much. Nobody cares because it's not their money. It's ours. And use a very large one.
Well, it's really going to get better because guess what?
Yep.
The TIF board approved 3 TIFs.
Yes.
Including another one for the Harbor Mall.
Well.
Don't you think the Harbor Mall has screwed the Fall River taxpayer enough yet?
No. Absolutely
okay. They
not.
already have over $30 million in TIFs with no paying. And now they're going to expand and give them another TIF for where Staples is located. Okay? 100% no tax. Guess what? You, the Fall River taxpayer, you're paying that. And the city council hasn't approved it yet, but if you're truly against this, and don't give me the crap, and I'm still trying to contain my tongue, that this is about jobs. This isn't about jobs. This is about giving your friends, your political contributors, your bullshit. How's that? I finally lost my tongue. To get you reelected, to get your coffers built up. This is a lie. Every TIF is a lie. You know, the voters should get together and start a petition to put a moratorium on TIFs for 5 years. Let's see how Kenny Fiola does then, because he's the only one making money out of this deal. The Fall River taxpayer is getting screwed every time you turn around. No matter what we do, no matter what we say, no matter how much in opposition we raise. They give away millions and billions of dollars every year to this child, his friends, and Kenny Fiola, who hasn't developed anything except his pockets and his wife's political campaigns committees. This is a slap in the face to the Fall River taxpayer.
Well, it's a lot more than that.
Okay.
Before your head explodes, I'll kind of give you take a break here because I feel your rage and pain because
I think everyone did.
We've said this time and time again on this show for the people. Look, how many companies have gotten TIFs, and as soon as the TIF's gone, they leave. We realize that all these TIFs that have been given out over the last decade have not resulted in any major spike in jobs for Fall River because we've remained at the top of the list for unemployment rate. All it succeeds in doing is when you give a TIF, these people don't pay taxes, they don't hire Fall River people, and their tax liability gets shifted to the taxpayer. Guess what? They can say they're not increasing the taxes, but they are increasing the taxes because they'll say we're going to keep, even if they said they were going to keep the rate stable or exactly what it was the previous year, it's not, because the taxes that the Harbor Mall, that Amazon pay are factored into the 2.5 formula. So somebody's got to pay it. And if they're not paying it, take a wild guess who's paying it. We are. And what does it accomplish? Nothing. Amazon categorically refuses to say how many Fall River people they've hired. Kenny Fiola says they don't have to. Kenny Fiola also lied and said they can't mandate it, which they did. All you got to do is look at Providence and Buddy Cianci. Buddy Cianci made it an absolute mandate that if you were going to get any help from the city of Providence, you had to meet Providence hiring requirements. There were conditions. So another lie. But, the thing that really, really, really disturbs me is that, Amazon is bad enough, but the Harbor Mall is going to result in a net loss to the citizens of Fall River. Because when they open Market Basket, and I have nothing against Market, I've never been to a Market Basket. I've heard they're great markets. They have a lot of good stuff. There's one in New Bedford. I know CJ's been to the one somewhere, but he's been the one. I know they got one in Taunton. They got one in New Bedford. But the South End Stop and Shop will ultimately go under. Shaw's has already gone under, and Fall River jobs were lost, and Fall River tax revenue was lost. Stop and Shop in the South End is on a very, very, it's on the tightrope of going under, even with Shaw's closing. Now you open up a Market Basket, and remember one thing, Stop and Shop's been there for decades. Decades. I'd say in excess of 25 years, probably around 30 years that thing's been there, maybe more. I think it was on when I first got on the fire department, so it's been there a very, very long time. They've paid taxes all that time. They employ mostly Fall River residents. I know people who work in that Stop and Shop. My daughter worked there when she was in high school. So what do we got? Market Basket comes in. The South End Stop and Shop goes belly up. We lose Fall River jobs. And we lose tax revenue. So it's the double whammy. We not only got the screwing once, we got it twice. We have to pay Market Basket's taxes, and we lose the tax revenue and the jobs from the Stop and Shop. Thank you, Kenny. Great job. The Office of Economic Destruction continues its genocide of the taxpayer. You might be going out over the air, CJ, but your audio's low.
No, I'm sorry. I said Sean Kadim was the lone voter who said no to it. So kudos to Sean Kadim. But a new company, 775 Duval Street, gets a TIF for to make way for a new 19,450 medical office building. 19,450 what? Square feet? Offices? I mean, I know what it is. But again, when you have
and who owns the building?
Oh well, that's Mona Corey, Peter Cabral, and Dr. Henry Crowley. Oh, I think Henry Crowley also has the marijuana company that's getting. There you go. I mean, come on.
Purely coincidental.
Purely coincidental that these people are connected to the mayor and connected to Kenny Fiola. All right. The new owner anticipates 16 permanent full-time jobs within 5 years. Really? We're going to give them a $255,000 tax exemption for 16 jobs.
And those 16 jobs won't all come from Fall River.
Exactly. Because according to Kenny Fiola, we can't do it. But then you have Hutchins Holding, which owns Raw Seafood up at Current Road. They get a TIF so that they can put up a new cold storage facility. Imagine that.
Yeah,
they're going to expand their business, and the Fall River taxpayer is paying again.
And how many people are going to work in a cold storage unit?
Well, I think that's where they put the bodies that are left over from the Kenny Fiola genocide.
That's right.
Okay, so you're looking at Hutchins Holding is going to look at a total property tax exemption of $886,000 over 5 years.
And the taxpayer gets that.
And the taxpayer pays that bill too.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Right.
And the last statistics I got were 37% of the people in the city of Fall River own property. And when they get through, everybody that can get out of here will get out of here. We'll be lucky if we got 25%. And that 25%, 22 of it will be the 1%ers like Kenny Fiola that are making $500,000 a year between him and his wife and don't care. And the elderly people who can't afford to move away because their house is paid for, they can barely afford the taxes and they won't get enough because wasn't Fall River didn't they get the dubious distinction of being the worst real estate market in the state?
Yep.
Yep. So they're going to have a house in the worst real estate market in the state that they can't get rid of.
But we're
so
going to rebrand that.
So we will be the best branded worst real estate market in the state.
Now, I'm going to get onto this. We got to cover this real quick, and because we have to. Fall River developer Jimmy Karam gets okay for state assistance to build Providence Hotel. One of our viewers called on this and made it very clear. See, this is how the politically connected go out and screw taxpayers, not only in Fall River, but in the other states. They're saying that this is a vacant parcel of land. But from what our viewers have said, and I haven't confirmed this yet, they're saying that there's already a hotel on that land. So I have to wonder why that's happening, and I don't know why that one came up. I didn't hit that screen, but okay. Live broadcast. But again, this is the things we're looking at. I'm not against a business making money, but I am against government supporting private business with no outcome to the taxpayer. If this $800,000 that we're giving to raw seafood produced in long term a revenue stream of $1.2 or $1.3 million, I would say great. If it produced 100 Fall River jobs, not jobs for Sonnet or Freetown or Somerset or Swan, Fall River jobs, I would say great. But they don't.
Well, look, I can't fault the developer.
No, you can't.
I mean, and of course, he's building a hotel in Providence, not in Fall River, because there's nobody to stay in a hotel in Fall River. We can barely support one hotel. And if we didn't have transient workers working in Fall River rather than Fall River people, that hotel would be under. But let's face it. The culprit here is a government. They buy. These rich developers and rich corporations buy their way in. And as Donald Trump once said early in the campaign, he gave to everybody, because then when he picked up the phone and called, he got what he wanted. And these people get what they want at the expense of the taxpayer. And guess what? I can't blame them.
No, you can't.
I blame the taxpayer, because you know something? Rhode Island didn't learn. Look what happened with I forgot the number of the
38 studios.
38 studio, right? It's still a mess.
That's right.
But they continue to do stuff like this. Why does the government subsidize private businesses? The man's a real estate guy. He's gonna look to make a profit. He's speculating. If it's that good an investment,
do it.
Let him find the money himself.
That's right.
Build it and make all the money he wants. Why, they don't want to subsidize the healthcare system. They don't want to give kids EpiPens for $10. Government won't spend any money on that. I've been trying to get a subsidy for elderly retirees for their prescription drugs through the state for 3 years now. I testified over a year ago. That'll take, if it ever gets through, it'll take 10 years for me to get a couple of dollars for people on fixed incomes. But when it comes to opioids, when it comes to subsidizing big business, they get all the money they want. It's like, here, open up the checkbook, you put in the zeros. And this is the problem. Yeah. And until the citizens get as enraged at government on every level, not just in the presidency, as we can see with the two candidates we have, people are upset. The fact that these people got, what happened to Sanders, and, with Trump, you can see people are outraged. They're outraged with government. But they still don't grasp the fact that they're the government, because they'll get outraged at the presidency, but they still won't get rid of their rep, their counselor, because they'll say, well, I can call so-and-so and get a street light. Well, no, you got a clean house. Let's go back to the revolution. People put their plows down, put their printing presses down, picked up a rifle, and went and created a new country. And then they went back to their printing presses and back to their plows. And then the people that were in government served a few terms and left. They went back to their plantations. And that's the way America was supposed to be. You're not supposed to, we've evolved into a country where being a politician is a lifetime occupation and a very lucrative occupation. And you only get elected if you can spend millions of dollars to get elected. And there's a reason why they spend that much money to get elected to positions that don't pay millions of dollars, but because it's a great life.
We're going to now show you how duplicity is created regularly in Fall River.
I don't know what U.S. betting is. And in fact, there's one document that's signed by Mr. Wynn, period. There's no 04 number. So up to an Exhibit K, I don't know what we're dealing with, and neither do you. Most importantly, and fatal to the U.S. betting, allegedly a corporation, is that Exhibit K is supposed to be an executed vote of the corporation authorizing execution of a corporation agreements. So if that were there, I could have tried, because I tried.
So as you see, U.S. Betting, which just entered into a contract with a company that makes My Pillow, had their bid thrown out.
And and that's a company that now is going to be making $6 million a year rather than $4. And they wanted to buy a building. Let's make that clear to the people. They didn't want to rent. They wanted to buy a building and pay taxes. They weren't looking for a TIF. They wanted to buy a building and increase a business that's in Fall River with Fall River people working. And it was a fatal argument. Their K. Why? Because they had somebody they wanted to give this property to.
Right.
So our great judge said this is fatal because it's not executed. So let's listen to the other piece.
The National Register and the Historical Commission is of the position that we would be looking for the minimal 6-month demolition delay into potentially 18 months. So, but we hope to have a further discussion with the building inspector to clarify our different understandings of that issue there. Obviously, the proposal is to demolish the property, and we're not in favor of that. I have gone through the proposal just quickly, and I did not see a Form K included in the proposal.
What's a Form K? Is that regarding the corporation?
Yes.
We're not a corporation, we're not LLC, so therefore there was no need for the directors to sign.
I'll refer to Attorney Macy. Is that correct?
That's the case. However, going back to whether it's minor or major, because he's an LLC, in general, LLCs are a quasi-corporation, quasi-partnership. And in general, the manager or the managing director, or depending how the articles are set up, can sign without a vote. So the lack of Form K is not fatal in this instance. However,
Bingo! Bingo! In this case, it's not fatal.
Right.
Even though they're an LLC, right?
Right.
No, but so here we go. Why isn't it fatal? Because the people that wanted that property were in with the city.
That's it.
So, our judge, it's fatal in one, and here's a company, $6 million company, that wants to invest more money, buy a property in Fall River, and do they go out and help them to try to straighten it out? No, they screw them. So you know something? That's why we're angry. Stay angry and have a great weekend.
And remember, screw the taxpayer. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday.